And we're live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, January the 27th. Before we get into our regular council agenda, we do have a Fiddleville Nonprofit Housing Corporation board meeting. So I will call that meeting to order officially at 6:32. We do have quorum. Just a reminder to members to declare any pecuniary interest that they may have. I don't see anybody making any declarations now, but if something does arise throughout the agenda, please make that declaration at that time. The minutes from our September 16th board meeting, can I have a mover and seconder to approve those? Moved by member Sample, seconded by member Wagner. Is there any discussion on those? Okay, all in favor? That's carried. All right, Trevor, do you want to start with the financials?
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Working from home and a bunch of people around all the time. Sorry. Okay, so we will turn to page, scrolling, page 6 of the report. I do like our new system. It is nice to show the balance. This is January 2024 to December 2024. And it does show you the changes in certain accounts. The fact that we have $100,000 in the bank account right now is great. If we'd had $3 million at the beginning of the year, that would be germane to this conversation. You'll see we've gone from 12,000 to 100. That's primarily because we made a little bit of profit this year. The County of Dufferin have given us some money for capital repairs, for carpeting, and for the gazebo front of the building. So we have that money in our account. In the investment reserve funds, we started the year with $119,000 invested. We made some profit, like interest in that, but we don't change that till the audit gets done this year. But that negative $93,000 means all that money in theory should be in our bank account. We only have $25,000, but you see that we began the year at $383. So we are given a certain amount of capital every year from the County of Dufferin. We've spent less than from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So that's why we're up to $25,000. Accounts receivable. Donna has an update on this. We did send out, it's showing accounts receivable of $10,000. We have that down to about $6,000. And right now, we only have, Donna did send out a supplementary report today. There's about 4 tenants that are over 90 days overdue, about $4,000. One of them we are actioning. We think they'll come up with the money because there is money available for people there through the County of Dufferin, and we know they're pursuing that. In fact, she's already given us a check for $2,500 of it. We're hoping it goes through. Let's put it that way. But anyways, we would say we have very little arrears. For all intents and purposes, arrears are not an issue with this. We don't like people being in arrears, but tenants do get 1 month behind. Carrying on the balance sheet here, the subsidy receivable there, $28,000. We get that on December 31st. We get it paid on January 1st for December because that's the day the mortgage comes out. So it's always owing at the end of the month, because they want to make sure it goes in on the first day of the month when the mortgages come out, so that never balances. HST, we did get an HST payment back there this year from $21,000 to $13,000. So that $8,000 is now in our pants. And prepaid expenses, we prepay insurance, we prepay taxes. It's gone from $18,000 to $8,000. So that's why we have another $10,000 extra in our bank account. Carrying on to the liabilities, nothing too material. You'll see our mortgage there, $516,000. It's not bad for a building with, 40 units. Would probably cost, I don't know, $15 million to build, and we have a mortgage of $500,000. And there's the good news at the bottom. The reserve fund is $25,000, and our retained earnings are up to $188,000 now. We're a nonprofit. We're trying not to make a profit, but we do have that money available for capital repairs if we need them. Any questions on the balance sheet?
Member Bonato.
The HST, are we getting more money back from them?
No, we get back 90% of the HST we pay. It just, depending on what the time of the year is, we've submitted all of it, and they've cut in the check. Right now they owe us $18,000 or $8,000. Last year they owed us $18,000 at this point. So it's the same as before.
Okay, anything else for Trevor?
Okay,
No.
I'll carry on to our income statement. Unaudited year end, so it's a pretty good picture. You'll see the two columns, year-to-date actual, year-to-date budget. There is a variance there. I took out anything under $1,000. Like, I kind of wanted to just draw your attention to things that mattered, that made more obvious sense. The budget for rent was $189,999. We brought in 203. RGI, the budget was 100,000, and we brought in 102. So we do think there will have to be some of that paid back. We do charge for an extra parking spot. We collect money for laundry equipment. We received $358,000 of subsidy. The budget was only $339,000. I put in a $15,000 adjustment. That's manually put in by me because I just want people to be aware that, yes, we're going to have to give some money back. And the solar income, that's nice. I mean, we put in those solar panels 15 years ago. We're averaging $9,000 a year. So we brought in probably $130,000 extra dollars over the period. So that's free money. Our interest income is slightly lower, but again, that will get adjusted at the audit at the end of the year. Our first mortgage, we know exactly what that is. Total super wages and benefits. It's increased a little bit. And the reason that is because we pay Dan Reed, our superintendent, to cut the grass. So when we come to groundskeeping later on, we pay him to cut the grass. There's no groundskeeping expense there. So it's actually a savings to us and also supports him, in a positive way. General building, that's a nice win. That's our slush fund. The budget was $40,000, we're at $37,000. Elevator maintenance, almost to the dollar. Security to the dollar. Electrical to the dollar. Plumbing and heating, just slightly lower. Snow removal was a little higher. It just depends on the wintry year. Groundskeeping, so that's what I'm saying. We spent $0, but then we did pay Dan. Waste removal, that's a big hit that we're experiencing. I do have that highlighted if this has been photocopied, but I did try to highlight that in yellow. So you draw your attention to that one because that's just a new world of waste removal. We talked about that before. Internet services are there. Gas, hydro, and water, I put those in orange if this was colorized because we haven't spent that much, but there were some hydro and gas bills that we didn't get in like November, December. So there's a couple missing. So I basically just put into the budget so the bottom line looks correct, what we expect we'll be spending. I just don't want to look like hydro. You're at 38,000. Well, we're probably at 42, reasonably. Insurance, slightly above. Property taxes, almost slightly above that, just the way it's set up. Professional fees. Our management fees are down there, 24,000. The reserve fund, 36,000. So with all my adjustments, I'm adjusting our year end to $17,000, and we traditionally make $17,000 to $20,000 a year. Open for questions.
Anything for Trevor on that one? No? Okay.
I do.
Member Sample.
Just on the garbage and the waste. At our last meeting, we did talk about possibly looking at the availability of just putting blue bins and garbage bins out and just have them pick it up. Did you look into that at all?
Donna, did you ask Dan? I think we did speak to Dan. There was something there. Donna is just hiding, lurking there, tongue in cheek in the background. Donna, did we get Dan to take care of that? Apparently.
My apologies there. A lot of that is large item. We did change out what we had discussed at the last meeting. Was we cannot have the garbage picked up door to door in front of the townhouses. We still have to keep the bins for the garbage for the main building and for the townhouses. And the same with recyclables.
So we can't curb it?
We cannot curb it at this time, no.
And who's making that stipulation?
Well, I guess that would be the town. Does the town want to pick that up?
Well, it's not the town, it's GFL that picks it all up, right? So
The county, yeah.
yeah, county does. So I'm not sure why we can't.
I suspect it's probably the same protocol with any kind of you know, like multifamily residential apartment unit or townhouse complex like that. I mean, I can look into that at the county level to see how that works in other situations, but I suspect that's the answer, that they won't do individual unit pickup for a multifamily unit.
And that's what I'm being told as well, is that
Okay.
as it is a multi-residential property, they won't do individual, because they cannot determine how many bags per unit are coming out to the road, and specific to each unit. Also, it would be, you know, a lot of blue bins, things like that. This time of year would be a bit of a disaster with snow removal, things like that. A lot of our costs right now, too, though, are large items, where residents just put out their large items, and we have to bring in a company to remove them off the property. So anytime that you go by, you might see a couch, you might see a couple couches or furniture, things like that, that we have to dispose of from the property.
Okay, that's, so in saying that, why? So if I gotta get rid of large items, I gotta pay for it. So what's happening there? I don't get it. I'm not kind of at a loss here. So where I work down in Orangeville, we have multi-unit residential in the building that I'm in, and we put out 8 blue bins at one time and 8 garbage bags. You know what I mean? So I know it's different from 40 or 38 compared to that, but I'm not sure why it's I don't get it. So we phoned GFL. We said we have 10 apartments, and that's how many blue bins we're putting out. So I'm not sure. I'm kind of at a loss.
I do think Dawn is speaking a little bit about our large item pickup.
I get that,
Yeah.
and I get
Yeah.
that, and I
Yeah.
understand that, but large items or not, like you, that's a huge hit. So I'm
Yeah.
just trying to
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand, like, everybody else in town has to pay for getting rid of large items. Why is the corporation paying for large items to get rid of? I know it's our responsibility to keep our streets clean, but how do you manage that? I don't know. So that's
I'll find out at county how it works with the county owned housing, because I mean that's probably the closest comparator that we have to this situation,
yes.
and see if that waste removal is contracted or if it's part of, you know, the overall county waste contract with GFL. So
Okay. That'd be good. All right. Thank
Councilor
you.
Wagner.
Yes, thank you so much. Just to sort of speak on Dan's point, is there a way to potentially send an email out to residents or post a notice, for example, in the lobby or on the door that basically says that large items, you know, are no longer kind of accepted? There is a program through GFL anyways, where the resident could call the number themselves for a large item pickup, but yes, it will come out of their pocket. It's very minimal fee though. It's not very expensive, and they will come and they will collect couches and things like that, to hopefully reduce a little bit of that, because that seems like maybe it might be taking up a decent bulk. And then secondary to that, if we could look at, even if we could just reduce the townhouses, right? Like at that point, if the townhouses were able to put out their garbage, GFL can monitor how many bags per house at that point. And it'll at least reduce some, you know what I mean? As opposed to putting all of those as well into the large bin. And if that's at least something we can have done, it's mitigating something, right? So, but I definitely think there needs to be some sort of notice or something put up to the residents to just really remind them that, you know, we should not be putting large items at the curb or at the bin, that we should be calling the large, you know, pickup number and getting the pickups done at that point. It happens, I don't know, a couple times a year for sure. I think you can maybe call even on demand for it. And then that way the streets aren't dirty. We're not having couches sitting in the snow, and we're hopefully, as the corporation, we're not stuck with that bill, because it could be pretty hefty. So those are just kind of my thoughts, and I appreciate that.
Appreciate it, totally.
We will definitely do that. And I wish we could determine who is putting the large items out. Sometimes it's coming not from our residents.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some of that. Member Bonato.
If the residents are calling in for large items, like I have to call in if I want to get rid of a large item, then we know who's putting it out, and GFL will pick it up. If we don't have the bins there for large items to be put into, then whoever from outside of our complex is putting stuff in there, they can't put anything into it. So the cost is $20 for large items at the end of the month. And I think that if the residents call for $20 to take out the large item that they want removed, I think is a lot easier than having that huge large bin there, which is available for anybody who wants to dump garbage into it.
It's not necessarily going into the bin, and in respect to everyone who's talking here, it's not going in the bin. It's just going in front of the two sheds.
Well, that would stop that process if we don't have people putting from our complex putting stuff there, because if they have large garbage pickup, they have to put it basically in front of their unit or the apartment, somewhere in front of there, somewhere like I do at the end of the street sort of type thing, for GFL to come in and pick it up, because it's a big truck that comes in and picks it up and throws it in.
And it is, but it's people just drive by dropping off in front of the shed, not specific into the bin.
Yeah, okay.
And people calling in, I guess we would have to provide them with our account number, because as a homeowner, you have an account. We only have one account for the property. Therefore, the tenants have to call in with an account in order to pay that $20 disposal fee.
I don't call in with any account.
Okay, all right. So different townships, different.
I have no.
Yeah, the only potential issue I see is because GFL through the county contract is not picking up the garbage there now. I'm not sure that they would be willing to do the large pickup like the same way any single detached home would, but I'll add that to the list as well, and I'll ask the county.
Yeah.
Member Descharty?
Yeah, just a brief. First of all, thanks, Trevor and Donna, for this. I think the last time I had large item pickup, it was $20, and this was August, September of last year. It was $20 and up to 3 items. So I'm wondering if a few tenants get together, right? They each have a large item. That might be a way of mitigating costs to the tenants. But I mean, mattresses and refrigerators and things like that. Anyway, I don't want to speak for what GFL is doing now, but I remember the last time I used it was August or September of last year, and it was up to 3 items for $20. So if there's an opportunity to partner with a couple of residents to get rid of it. Anyway, the other question is snow removal. We've got somebody contracted to do snow removal.
Yeah.
Okay. I have received a couple of concerns about where they are actually depositing the snow. I'm just wondering if was any other complaints there in that regard.
I'll ask Donna. I do think it's been a hard year because we got a bunch
Yes,
of heavy
we've had
snow
lots of
there,
snow.
right? Yeah. Donna?
I was just there, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday of last week. The property looked amazing. I have not had complaints. I've had complaints of not putting down pet safe salt, which I know the town is not probably doing that on their sidewalks, and that we can't afford that. It's, that is the one complaint I've had, or people who shift work and the time that they leave and when they come back, and the snow contractor, is in between times. There's only been one tenant that has complained to me about snow removal in that respect. Another tenant on the respective pet-friendly salt.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Just appreciate it.
And same contractors last few years.
Anything else in the financials? Okay, can I have a motion then to approve those as presented? Member Sample, seconded by Member Donato. All in favor? It's carried. All right. Anything on the property management report?
It is there. We've had no vacancies. We are on target. There's a mention of corridor painting where we're paying a person to paint the corridors at $400 per floor, which is super cheap. And it really is a nice improvement. Like, sometimes I've got pictures. It's very nice. That's a nice improvement. No, we have nothing else. Like as far as we have 2 items for new business very quickly.
Okay. Can I get a motion then to approve the management report? Shardy, seconded by Wegner. All in favor? It's carried. Okay.
Just new business update on Kochi money. We have been approved about $110,000 next year to have the parking lot paved. Thank you, Mayor Mills, for getting that signed today. Just this is money from called the Canada Ontario Community Housing Initiatives, and that's one of those projects that you're never going to do because it's so expensive. Like unless you get some support, and so the County of Dufferin have reached out and give us $110,000. We got 3 nice quotes, so they're all pretty competitive. I think work's slowing down, so people are looking for. I definitely have people asking me for the work, and then this year's Kochi money. We're still working on getting it spent. We've done the hallways with carpeting that we did, or floor, not carpeting, vinyl plank flooring. That again adds to the whole refurb, but we're doing that front canopy, and we got the building permit. It's been a little bit longer than we hoped for, so we're hoping to have it done. They'd like us to have it done by March 31st, but we're hoping to have at least the front off and a bunch of stuff done before March 31st. The other item in new business. Oh, sorry. The other item in new business is just we had an operational review done in 2022 for the 2021 year. It was completed in October 2023. We got it in April of 2024. They asked us to have it all responded to them within 6 weeks. I do apologize that we changed offices. We changed merged companies this year. It's been really, really super busy. So we need to have a very quick Zoom meeting in a month just for operational review items. All pretty minimal. I'm working on a bunch of them. There's nothing materially important. The biggest item that we want to ask for permission or consideration, they want us to tender our property management contract because it's been a few years. So normally the county our town of Shelburne has taken that from us to tender in whatever capacity they see fit. I do think our plan is in 2 years to return this property to Dufferin County. So it seems a little, and maybe the conversation can be them, is it needed for 2 years? If that's our short-term plan or long-term plan.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to get together in February then?
Just to bring up the things that we've changed, anything that's important for the council will be all made aware of. But part of that is to either tender the property management or at least defer now to Denise, to whoever wants to talk that internal discussion, whether they could get permission to have that waived.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can have a discussion.
Okay.
What are the dates of our February meetings?
February 10th and February 24th.
24th?
Dawn and I said 24th works for us on that Monday. It should be 10 minutes. all we'll talk about is just the items that need you to approve, you know, like, and if there's anything there. And then that one item.
Okay. Excellent. Any other new business from any of the board members? No? Okay. Well, thanks, folks. And we'll see you in about a month.
Okay, thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Can I have a motion to adjourn? Member Sample, seconded by Member Gashardi. All in favor? It's carried. All right. Flipping over to our regular council agenda. I'll call that meeting to order at 6:57. And we will start with the playing of the national anthem. If you're able, please stand. All right. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions, and it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. Reminder for members to declare any pecuniary interest that they may have. On to the minutes from our January 13th council meeting. Can I have a motion to adopt those minutes as circulated? Moved by Councillor Sample, seconded by Councillor Fegan. Any discussion on those? All in favor? That's carried. All right, public question period. Madam Clerk, I think there was a question submitted electronically.
That's correct, yes. And Deputy Clerk Alice Weil is going to read those questions into the public record.
Okay.
Questions for Council from Raina James, Council meeting January 27th, 2025. Section 6, Item 1.1, Report CAO 2025-01, 420 Victoria Street. In reference to the due diligence risk assessment attached as Appendix A to the August 28, 2024 letter from SBA, page 8, prepared by EXP, my question is as follows. Is Council aware that this report on page 95 in Figure 10A, Soil Analytical Results, identifies petroleum hydrocarbons, PHC, and BTEX within the confirmatory soil sample identified as FS1, which is located according to the site plan, page 67, fully within the residential property immediately abutting to the north of the site in question. Further, there appears to be no mention or discussion in the documentation about this. As this is a due diligence risk assessment, This should be acknowledged and addressed as it clearly has potential liability for the current and future owners of this redevelopment site, as well as the owners of the residential property who are impacted by this off-site soil contamination. Will Council defer this item until further investigation of this potential liability is undertaken, or turn a blind eye to this information as their consultants have? Section 8, Item 2, SPA 24. Sorry?
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to say, because there's a couple of questions submitted, right? I think on this, when it relates to the first actual report we get to, and Steve Burnett, our contract engineers here, rather than answer it now, Steve, if you could just address it when we get to that report. Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Wait.
Okay. Sorry, Alice.
Okay. Section 8, Item 2, SPA 2406, 101 second line, Shoppers Drug Mart. Is Council aware that this proposal, if approved, will add further to the decline of the downtown by being in direct conflict to one of the main existing, long-established anchor businesses in the downtown core? Further, chain companies such as Shoppers Drug Mart have no vested interest in the communities in which they locate and only wish to improve the bottom line of their corporation. Does Council seriously believe that this is in the best interest of the residents of Shelburne to support the influx of new development in the form of chain stores instead of supporting existing community-friendly businesses such as Caravaggio Drugs? Approving this application will just be another nail in the coffin for the downtown core. In addition, a general question for Council resulting from these concerns and other concerns previously expressed at the last Committee of Adjustment public hearing, and a number of other concerns that I have as a resident of Shelburne and a professional with 40+ years experience in the planning and development industry in Canada. Will Council consider the creation of a Planning and Development Committee of Council to provide expert advice and oversight to you on matters related to planning and development within the town? Further, it appears that what was decided by former members of Council 15+ years ago as the most expedient was to manage developments within the town has become the status quo, and I believe that times have changed and there are other options that may serve the town, particularly the residents of this town, better. The first step toward change would be through the creation of a Planning and Development Committee of Council. With all due respect, I would ask Council to consider taking immediate steps toward the creation of an advisory body working in the interests of Council and the residents of this community, made up of professionals with applicable knowledge and experience on a voluntary basis, in order to provide a more sensitive and respectful review with a focus on the real concerns of the residents and the long-term future of this town. Is Council or a Council member willing to make a motion to initiate the process for the creation of a new committee of Council entitled the Planning and Development Committee, or a reasonable facsimile? Sincerely, Ms. Randa James, 132 First Avenue East, Shelburne.
Okay. Thanks, Randa. A lot to unpack there. As I said, I'll have Steve Burnett speak to the first question when we get to that report. With respect to the other item that is listed under our communications section, it's an application for site plan approval. That's the Shoppers Drug Mart reference that was made. A couple of comments I'll make here. One procedural, one more substantive. Because this is a site plan application, the way site plan approvals work is that those are approved at the staff level. So Council can make comments with respect to site plans, but we do not approve those. In terms of the more substantive comments, I think the suggestion was that, Council, even if we did have decision-making authority there, should deny this sort of application because it's a national chain store as opposed to a local independent. The difficulty is, nobody, whether it's Council or staff, nobody who's approving these applications has the authority to refuse site plans so long as they conform to the permitted uses. So there is no legislative authority given to local planning decision makers to favor, one tenant over another, whether it's a national chain or an independent. I think as counselors, we often hear, well, why don't you bring business XYZ to town? That's not really up to us. We can't pick and choose that. As much as we might like to, that's not the reality of the legislative world that we live in. If that's the sort of thing that you think local planning authorities should be involved in, then that's a matter, I guess, that needs to be taken up with the province who delegates that authority. The last point, which I think was a third question in there, was with respect to local planning committees and just the structure, by which we make these decisions at the local level. I think it's fair to say, by any objective measure, that both this council and the previous council certainly haven't been shy about changing the way we do things. There's been a number of governance changes that have been made over the last 6 years. I think I speak for the rest of my colleagues around this virtual table to say that, we're always open to look at better ways of doing things. I do take a little bit of exception with the comment to say that would allow us to access the advice of experts. All of our planning decisions are based upon advice that we receive from experts, whether it's engineers, planners, staff. These are people who have the requisite training, education, certifications to be giving this advice. And more times than not, I think council follows that advice because we rely on it and we trust it. But that said, looking at some sort of other decision-making tool is always healthy. So we'll take your comments under advisement and take a look at that. So, were there any other questions submitted?
No, sir. No further questions.
No. Okay. All right. On to council inquiries. I have a couple. One is an update. One is just something I'd like to clarify. The first item, council's aware, I think, and probably a number of our residents are as well. There was an email that was circulated recently to the patients of the doctors of the North Dufferin Wellness Center. And a copy of that email was supplied to a number of counselors, and I think it was also shared on social media platforms. The majority of the email was sort of an advisory to patients, advising them that the doctors were moving locations on a temporary basis to Orangeville while their more permanent location in Shelburne is being renovated. That's fine. I took no issue with that. The part of the email, though, towards the end, which I did take some exception to, stated, and I quote, that little to no support was being offered to these doctors from the town of Shelburne to the county of Dufferin. And that just simply is not the case by any objective measure. And I just think that needs to be clarified. For a little bit of context, for those who follow council regularly, they'll know that the doctors were experiencing a really unfortunate circumstance when it comes to the relationship with their landlord at 712 Main Street. The town has been aware of that and has been engaged on that file for, I'm going to say, approximately 2 years. Town staff has been working with the doctors of North Dufferin Wellness Center, trying to help them find solutions to their issues. Some of those proposed solutions, included trying to procure other suitable locations for them. Unfortunately, none of the suggestions that were made seemed appropriate in the eyes of the doctors, and that's fine. That's their decision. Despite that, the doctors did provide a delegation to council in November, wherein they advised us that the situation had become more critical and that they were being told by their landlord at 712 Main that their rent was going to increase dramatically as of January 1st. And if they didn't agree to that rental increase, they would have to immediately vacate. So at that point, the doctors had asked for sort of an immediate infusion of support from the town. Council at that particular meeting asked staff to come back with a report. Staff did that on December 9th. And at that meeting, council ultimately decided to approve a rent supplement, which would in essence cover the cost of that monthly rent increase that the doctors were going to be experiencing at their 712 Main Street location for up to a year. The total dollar amount of that supplement or subsidy that was approved by council was $37,663, and that amounted to $3,139 a month. Without question, I think council understood that it was important to support these doctors at a local level and keep them in the community, knowing full well that when it comes to healthcare, that is firmly a provincial power. The doctors weren't apparently getting any support from the province, so we decided to step in and help where we could. That offer was made despite the fact that only 20% of their patients actually live within the town of Shelburne. So this council had committed, close to $40,000 of taxpayers' money to help retain these doctors and keep them in the community and help them in their time of need. They've decided to move locations, and that's completely fine. I mean, as private, as doctors in private practice, they're fully, capable of making those decisions, and they did. And I think in the fullness of time, the decision they've made is probably going to be a good one. But at this point, after the fact, to say that the town has offered little to no support, just is, it is quite frankly not accurate. And I think that record needed to be clarified. Any other comments on that issue before I move on? No? Okay. Second quick update, as council will know from our last meeting, we have now had our delegation with staff from the MTO at the Roma conference. That was a week ago today, actually. So Deputy Mayor Hall, myself, our CAO, our contract engineer who's here with us tonight, as well as the Dufferin County Warden, had 15 minutes to meet with MTO staff. The thrust of our presentation was to say, look, this has been an issue ongoing for a quarter of a century. The town has been asking MTO to step in and provide, some help with respect to the truck traffic in our downtown core for close to 25 years. And last council made a delegation in 2019, and at that point in time, and in some subsequent meetings, we were given a list of things to go back and do. And what we reported to staff was that at this point, we have completed that list. So from our perspective, we have done everything that they've asked us to do. And it's our position that, the ball be turned back over to them to carry it the rest of the way. One of the items that was sort of up for discussion, I think, leading into this meeting was whether or not there was a need to identify a preferred route. And in consultation with Steve Burnett, we had talked about the fact that the way the environmental assessment process works, it really doesn't make sense for the town of Shelburne to be choosing a route and being a proponent in any sort of EA process, because regardless of where this thing goes, it's ultimately going to be in other municipal jurisdictions outside of the town of Shelburne. I'll speak for myself, but I think the reception we got from staff, MTO staff, was positive. I think they understood that argument, and actually what they came back with was a question essentially asking, at this point then is the next step for us to start the EA process. And we all kind of nodded in unison to say, yeah, exactly. If you guys could pick up and do that, then that'll get us further than I think we have been in 25 years. Steve, did you want to offer any other I don't want to put you on the spot, but did you want to offer any other insights from a technical point of view?
Yeah, through you, your worship. I think that summarizes it quite well. We did make the point that really going forward and from a technical perspective, and the head of engineering was there as well and agreed with that approach from not circumventing the answer to the preferred EA solution. So seemed like a more positive meeting, obviously without full commitment, but it did seem like a positive meeting and heading down the right technical approach now, heading into an EA, and really the town of Shelburne cannot be the sole proponent for that EA. It really has to become a cooperation either between the town and the county, or the town, the county, and the department. So it really is coming together from a technical perspective, I guess. So
Okay. And I guess just one more update. We're following up with that with a meeting on Friday with MPP Jones. Oh, sorry, Denise.
Just to
Zappa next now?
clarify, yeah, because of the election announcement, that meeting is not going forward.
Okay. All right. Well, shortly after the election, rest assured that whoever our member of provincial parliament is, will be following up. Councillor Bernardo.
Couple of inquiries. I've noticed in my walks around that a lot of people are putting snow in the sidewalks again with their snow blowers and not following up and cleaning it out. I don't know how we can tell these people that that is not where it goes. And similarly, ends of driveways, they're pushing the snow back out onto the road. Again, I don't think that's something that we want happening. We don't want them cleaning because wherever the snow plow is put in, that it goes out to the end of the road. And the final thing, I know that we are cleaning the hydrants somewhat, but can we lower it a little bit? They're still knee high, even after we've knocked off the top part of the snow, but there's still quite a bit of shoveling that the firefighters would have to do if they were to hook up. So can we lower down a little bit closer to the ground when we remove snow so that they're not struggling in the case of a fire? I think that's all precious moments that get used up in the case of a fire. And that's it.
Okay. Jim?
Yes, through your worship. Yeah, we can start with snow there. We have noticed in the last few weeks that we have got people that are blowing snow back out into the middle of the road. We've also had calls from people who have removed part of their front lawns, removing their snow storage for extra parking. They've got nowhere to put snow, so they're either blowing it out on the road or placing it by the road where the plow is shoving it back in, and we're getting complaints on that. So our work staff operations is keeping track of those locations as well. I believe Jennifer will follow up on this too, that bylaw is involved there as well. So we are marking those down to follow up with the people, whether it's either door knocker notification or in-person visit. With the removal of snow around the hydrants, we do have those notices up on the website to ask people to clean them out. We do have our staff when they're not doing their mandatory duties there, they are out with the backhoes lowering that down as much as they can. So they are making the rounds there too, cleaning out around the hydrants. So,
Jim, if they can just take it down a little bit lower, I know they are taking it away, but with the backhoe, but they're still leaving, like I said, almost knee height of snow. Can they lower it down just a little bit more so that the firefighters don't have to shovel to get in to the hydrants? That's all I'm asking for.
yeah.
You're doing a good job. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying if they can just take it down a little bit lower so there's less work for the firefighters when they have to hook up.
Through your worship, I'll touch base with utilities in the morning. It's possible too, we do have some new staff members too that have just come on board, so maybe that's part of it there as well, but I'll touch base with them in the morning. So.
Okay, thanks, Jim, and thank them very much for what they are doing. I appreciate it because I know one of the hydrants is near my house, and that's why I mentioned this.
Will do. Thank you.
Any other inquiries? No. Okay. All right, then on to reports, our only report of the evening. Our CAO and engineers report regarding 420 Victoria. So Denise, I'll let you kick off.
Thanks, Mayor Mills. So I'll go through more of the generic information as outlined in the report on the update in the background. If there's any technical questions with respect to the report to staff from SBA or the consultant's report, which is extensive, I'm going to defer that to Steve. So this is an update on the process that we've undertaken with respect to the past direction of council as approved to surplus the property. At that point, and as you can see, there's 2 staff reports that are linked in this from 2019 as well as from 2022. Our intent with respect to the remediation of this site has always been to utilize it as an end use for residential. Obviously, we had identified that that would be probably the most preferred approach to recuperate the investment that we've had to dedicate to this cleanup, which is outlined under the one section that shows we've spent about $835,000 to date on this. So we've done a little bit more work than we had originally anticipated because of the scope of remediation that needed to be done, and that we completed some secondary work to ensure that we would have a strong understanding of what our options were for the end use. As we went through this process, and most recently the reports from March of 2023, we decided, and it's reflected in this report, that our continued adjustments through site remediation to bring it to a level that it could be used from residential, and those associated costs, which could be anywhere up to 1.8 million to 1.9 million, were something that we didn't see as being realistic or strategic in our continued approach. So that's why we've stopped with the process, based on the fact that we would not adjust the end use to residential as part of this process, and we would continue to surplus the property and then get an assessment based on it remaining as an ICI, or institutional commercial industrial. That designation is still highly wanted and attractive, and we feel has merit. And for that reason, we've presented you with the cost estimates of continued remediation, but also again reiterated why we believe that the recommendation that we made is the most strategic and financially responsible for the town, will serve as an ability to recover, we hope, some of the investment that we've made, and allow the development to go forward based on a surplus of sale. So in summary, what the analysis on the technical side that, again, Steve can speak to much more thoroughly than I can, but I'll just do a quick summary as outlined in the report, is that we would sell the property without further cleanup or any further redevelopment, that the property would continue to be zoned and used for an institutional, commercial, industrial capacity and not residential. And I'll just expand, in addition to not being residential, it would be capped, which means no basement. The existing building would also be removed as part of the site end use, and that any future buildings, as I've just mentioned, would be slab on grade, i.e. no basement, and that no further potentially environmentally impacted undertakings or activities would be completed by us as a component of this process. So I think that's all I'm going to introduce. And then again, I will defer to Steve if you have any technical questions as members of council.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. And I guess just to add to that, and it is mentioned in the report already for mayor and council, but when Denise referred to capped property, what that really refers to is hard surfacing, so asphalt, concrete. It can also include soil, just to cap the site. And as we noted there, the recommendation was 0.5 meters, or just under 2 feet of soil capping in areas that are landscaped, which would very closely match sort of typical of about 0.2 to 0.3 that would be required. And then there was also just expanding to about 1 meter around any sort of trees or any new plantings on site. So all in all, that's the recommendation that's coming through from a technical perspective. I appreciate that maybe there was a question there through the question period, that maybe now is the appropriate time to sort of answer that. And with all due respect to Ms. Randa James, I think there's a wee bit of nomenclature and labeling by the multiple consultants that were on site that probably clears this up. So 100% correct that FS-1 was found with hydrocarbons and BTEX on site. But FS1, and this is where the nomenclature comes in, which is actually located off the property, was clean and did not have any contamination at all. So if council has, I could share it, but if council has the agenda in front of them, if you turn to page, gosh, I had it here. If you turn to page 86 of the package, I believe the question period talked to page 95. That's actually a cross section and would have been very confusing. But if we turn to page 65, I think I'll be able to kind of walk council through this very quickly and just make sure that everyone can ask any questions, but make sure it's clear. And we were not the consultant choosing numbering on site, and I appreciate that it's probably caused some confusion in this question period. So if you're able to get to the map that is shown on page 86, and you actually zoom into the area at the north end of the property, maybe a little difficult to see, but you'll actually see exactly as was indicated in the question period, there is an FS1 that is located basically between the house to the north and on the northern property. The fact that that one shows up as green on this map actually indicates in the legend that that was clean. That sampling was done December 18th, 2018, and did indicate that this location was below residential limits. This also makes a lot of sense to us because it's the red areas that were right up against the footing and the foundation where there was some tankage on site at that time that was located. So if you see the indicator, and there's a table up on the top right-hand side that indicates FS-1, that's actually a different test pit location. Again, it wasn't our firm that chose that numbering system, but I appreciate the confusion. But that you will see is actually very close to the footing location on the north side of the existing Public Works building. That test pit did show results of BTEX and hydrocarbons. I do want council to know that that dotted red line that goes around the south end of the building and also to the, I guess, to the east of the building and actually wraps around the north end of the building was the excavation area that was completed at that time. So that area was actually all the hydrocarbons and BTEX was removed through excavation at the time. And there was confirmatory sampling afterwards up to that property line that did show it was clean. I guess another example of this, just for council's benefit, there was another S-1 sample taken on that north property that you can see just on the property line 2 there. It was clean. And if you look towards Victoria Street, you'll see an S1. So again, that same confusing of S-1 and S1. In that particular case, both were clean. But just to show that it was a wee bit of a whoever was on site choosing test pit names might have caused this confusion. So I apologize on behalf of all the consultants that pulled this together and quite a thorough analysis by the residents. So that's great, but ultimately referring to the wrong test pit and the site was proven as clean and no effects to that northern property. So just so the council had that benefit, that's all.
So Steve, just in really simplistic layman's terms, because we're not all engineers here. The test pits that were done on that adjacent neighboring property to the north were all clean.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why it was not referred to or brought up throughout the consultant's report, because
Right.
there was no concerns with migration from the tankage that was found during those 2018, 19, and 20 work. So that's why it was not brought to anyone's attention, because they were clean samples on site.
Okay. So it's not as though you were turning a blind eye to it. It just, yeah. Okay.
Not at all. And in fact, chased samples on all directions of the property, as I think it shows clearly from the multiple test pits. Just I think this is through 3 different consultants and a combination of nomenclature and labeling. But yeah, the northern site was clean.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Steve on this, or for Denise? So Denise, just in terms of summarizing the recommendations then, so what's being recommended is that any further remediation work on our part be ceased. We're done.
Yes.
And that the property be marketed as ICI property. So we're not looking at rezoning it to residential. And then there's a piece in there about allocation, which is sort of self-explanatory, but anything else you want to add?
No, just to reiterate what I mentioned, that a purchaser has at their discretion the choice to continue the remediation for an end use that they desire if it's not within the zoning and at their cost. And certainly having the report that Steve's firm managed on our behalf provides any purchaser, and that would actually, this report will be attached to the surplus and the sale for them to make an informed decision. What's not reflected in the report is certainly the process that we had established in the past is that we would manage and sell this internally, that we wouldn't be utilizing a real estate agent. We would set a minimum bid. And obviously, if the process resulted in the minimum bid not being met, we'll be coming back to council to seek direction on next steps.
Okay. All right. So the recommended motion reads as follows: be it resolved, the council receives report CAO 2025-01 420 Victoria Street update, sale and zoning for information, and that given the significant estimated costs and timelines required by the town to be able to rezone the property to residential, that the zoning remain as institutional, commercial, industrial, ICI, and that no further costs be allocated to property remediation or rezoning, and that the property be sold under its current ICI zoning with the restriction that any future buildings will be slab on grade with no basement, and that the previously recommended sewage servicing allocation of 2 cubic meters per day, in addition to the existing allocation of 1 cubic meter per day for ICI redevelopment of the site, be maintained, and that the property is granted stage 1 priority. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Guichardi, seconded by Councillor Fegan. Any further discussion on that one? All in favor? That's carried. All right. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for clearing that up.
Thanks, guys.
And summarizing it in a way that we can understand, which I always appreciate.
Yeah, no, all good. And I appreciate the question and yeah, some feedback to some consultants for future labeling. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Okay. Thanks,
Have
Steve.
a great evening.
Any notices of motion for this evening? No? Okay. On to communications. Is there anything there that anybody wants to pull out? Okay, can I have a motion then to receive those items as information? Moved by Councillor Sample, seconded by Councillor Wagner. All right, all in favor? It's carried. It's motion for the confirming bylaw. Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Guichardi. All in favor? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn. Counselor Bernardo, and Counselor Sample. All in favor? Carried. All right. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.